Before the biggest football matches on Earth can begin, this ball has to be charged. Yes, charged. Because the official ball of the 2026 FIFA World Cup is no longer just leather, air, and stitching. Hidden beneath its surface is a motion sensor that records the ball's movement 500 times every second. It can detect the exact moment of a touch. It can help decide offsides, handballs, and moments that could change the entire tournament. But the story becomes even stranger. To understand how technology inside a football affects its flight, NASA tested footballs in space. So how did a simple object made for kicking become a rechargeable machine connected to referees, artificial intelligence, and satellites? This is the story of the smartest football ever sent onto a World Cup pitch.
But to understand how a football became smart, we first have to remember how primitive it once was. For generations, players kicked balls made from inflated animal bladders, often wrapped in leather. They were round only in the loosest sense. Each ball behaved differently. One strange bounce could send it almost anywhere. In the 19th century, vulcanized rubber and inflatable rubber bladders began to make footballs more consistent. Leather panels were stitched around the bladder, and the opening was closed with heavy laces. That solved one problem, but created another. When rain soaked into the leather, the ball became heavier as the match continued. Heading it could feel less like football and more like being struck by a wet piece of luggage. Before engineers could place a sensor inside a football, they first had to solve a much simpler problem. How do you make a ball stay round?
Then, in 1970, television changed the football forever. The World Cup in Mexico was being broadcast to a massive international audience. But there was a problem. On black and white television screens, traditional footballs were difficult to follow. The solution became one of the most recognizable designs in sports history. The Telstar was built from 32 panels, 12 black pentagons, and 20 white hexagons. The dark panels made the ball easier to see as it moved across the screen. Even its name came from technology. It was named after the Telstar communication satellite, which helped connect television signals across the world. A football designed for television became the image most people still imagine when they hear the word soccer ball. Long before sensors entered the ball, technology had already changed its appearance. By the 1986, leather had become the weakest part of the football. It could absorb water, gain weight, and behave differently in bad weather. Then, in 1986, the Azteca changed everything. It was the first World Cup match ball made entirely from synthetic material. Its new surface absorbed less water, lasted longer, and returned to its original shape more reliably. But the next major revolution was not the material. It was the construction. At the 2006 World Cup in Germany, the Teamgeist abandoned the classic 32-panel design. It used only 14 panels. And instead of being stitched together, those panels were joined using heat. The goal was to create a ball that was rounder, more accurate, and more stable in flight. A football was no longer simply sewn together. It was engineered. And that search for the perfect flight would soon create one of the most controversial balls in World Cup history.
Then came the ball that goalkeepers feared, the Jabulani. For the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, the mission was simple: make the ball rounder, smoother, and more predictable. It had only 8 thermally bonded panels. On paper, it looked like progress. But on the pitch, something strange happened. Players said the ball moved in ways they could not explain. Goalkeepers complained that it suddenly changed direction in the air. Shots seemed to dip, float, or swerve at the worst possible moment. The problem was not magic. It was aerodynamics. A ball that was designed to be more perfect had become harder to predict. And for the first time, millions of fans began arguing about the science of a football. After Jabulani, the lesson was clear. A football could not just be round. It had to be controlled, tested, balanced, and understood by science. So the next generation of World Cup balls became more than sports equipment. They became engineering projects. The surface was tested. The panels were redesigned. The flight was measured. But then, the biggest change moved inside the ball. In 2022, Alrilla introduced connected ball technology to the World Cup. A tiny motion sensor was placed in the center of the ball. It sent data 500 times every second, not to entertain the crowd, but to help referees understand the exact moment the ball was touched. The football was no longer just being watched. It was speaking. And then came Trionda, the official ball of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. A ball designed for 3 host nations: Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Its colorful waves were made to represent unity, motion, and the energy of the tournament. But the most important part was not the design. It was hidden inside the ball. Trionda carried a 500 Hz motion sensor. That means the ball could capture movement data 500 times every second. Every touch, every tiny movement, every sudden change in direction. That data could be sent to the video assistant referee system in real time. So before the match, this ball was not only checked for air pressure, it also needed power. The World Cup ball had become a connected device, a piece of sports equipment that had to be ready like a camera, a microphone, or a phone. And suddenly, the most traditional object on the pitch became one of the smartest. But the story did not stop on Earth. To understand how a smart football behaves, NASA took the experiment into space. A World Cup ball was tested aboard the International Space Station. There, without gravity pulling it down, scientists could study something that is almost impossible to see clearly on a normal pitch: balance, spin, internal weight, and stability. Because once you place a sensor inside a football, even a tiny change in mass can matter. In space, the ball could float freely. It could rotate without falling. It could reveal how its hidden technology affected motion. This was not just a football trick for cameras. It was physics. The same science that shapes rockets, satellites, and spacecraft was now helping explain how a football moves. And this is where the football becomes more than a ball. For more than a century, referees had to judge the game with their eyes. A touch, a deflection, a possible handball, a pass that might be offside. Everything depended on what humans could see in real time. But modern football moves too fast. A single touch can happen in a fraction of a second. A player can be onside, and then offside almost instantly. That is why the connected ball matters. It does not replace the referee, but it gives the referee something no human eye can provide: the exact moment of contact. When the ball is touched, the system knows. And when that information is combined with player tracking cameras, football decisions become more precise than ever before. The ball is no longer silent evidence. It has become part of the decision. So the journey of the football is no longer just a story of leather, rubber, and panels. It began as a rough bladder wrapped in leather. It became the black and white icon television needed. It survived synthetic materials, thermal bonding, and the chaos of aerodynamics. Then engineers placed a sensor inside it. NASA watched footballs float in microgravity. And now the World Cup ball can send its own data to the referee system. In the past, the ball was kicked, chased, and judged from the outside. Today, it can reveal what happened from the inside. Maybe that is the strangest part of this invention. The most familiar object on the pitch was never really finished. It kept changing with every camera, every scientist, and every argument about fairness. The next time you see a football rolling across the grass, remember this: it may look simple, but inside it carries more history, more engineering, and more secrets than most fans will ever imagine. This file is closed, but the next invention may be even stranger. Subscribe now and open the next file with us.